Welcome to the channel and this new Let's Play for Rome 2, but it won't be vanilla Rome 2. This is going to be Et Impera 1.2. Now we're going to be using the open beta release. This is in April 2017. Now there's a risk associated with that in the sense that Dresden has already announced that they are within a couple of months of actually releasing this as the final version. So there's a chance that the save game may break. If it does, I will restart. And the same also, if things go badly wrong, I will restart. Now, this video is going to be about DEI and the campaign. There will be no actual gameplay in it. So if you're not interested in me just talking about DEI and what I'm going to be doing, jump to part 1. Part 1 is the formal start of the campaign. I'll still do a short introduction on that, but this is going to be quite a long introduction. And it's going to consist of 3 parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about the new changes for DEI 1.2 as listed. I can't vouch that whether they're actually there, but I'm assuming they are because it's very much well into late development. The second part is going to consist of me talking about the campaign I'm going to be playing. The final part is we're going to go into the campaign map, and that's where I'm going to talk a little bit about the interface and my strategy for the game. So let's get into part 1. Now part 1, I am quite literally going to be reading the information that I've obtained from the forum, purely and simply because I haven't played this very much. I've done a little bit of test play just to get a feel for the interface so I don't look a complete idiot. And it's also worth noting that I haven't played DEI for a very long time. I've just been too busy. I played a lot when it first came out with 1.0. I played a little bit just out of curiosity for 1.1. I played a short campaign, but this is going to be my first really full-blown campaign for a very long time. So what are the new changes for DEI 1.2? Well, the biggest, probably obvious change is listed as they're implementing a submod which is called the People of Rome, where they're going to introduce the population system into the game. In fact, they have introduced the population system. What am I saying? They are going to. And the way that works is that to recruit troops and replenish troops, you've got to have the appropriate population grouping within the region you are recruiting. So this kind of slows up the steamroll approach across the map, because if you conquer a new region, you won't have the population to recruit new troops or even replenish. So this is going to have a big effect on the speed of the campaign, and especially even in the late game you still can't just steamroll across the map. So that's the first kind of big change. Now the next change is probably a bit more subtle, but it's interesting for the aesthetics of the game, is that they've moved the start date back to 278 BC compared to the original vanilla game, which is 272 BC. It's worth noting that DEI uses 4 turns per turn, so that means you're going to get an extra 24 turns before you get to the same date as the vanilla game, and that kind of gives you a kind of early Roman historic introduction to the campaign as well, so that could be interesting. Now another big change is the fact they have switched to the Augusta campaign map. So this has had an effect. There's going to be a lot more regions on the map. The starting positions are changed, so you can't just rely on the old strategy of banging through different areas with all the start positions and things like that. Now as part of that is that Syracuse, Jerusalem and any other cities have now gained walls. I know I was probably one of the people who was really disappointed the fact that, given how important Syracuse was historically, that it was classified as a minor settlement in the vanilla game, where it now has walls. And the other thing also is that all the buildings, and I mean, to me this amazes me, because they overhauled all the buildings and income from the vanilla game, and it sounds like they've done a major rework again with this. So buildings and income have changed dramatically. And then the final bit I'm going to talk about in this section is the battle overhaul. They've done a lot of work on the battle overhaul. Apologies to the guy who does it. I can't actually remember your name now. I wrote it down and I can't read my own writing. And I'm just going to run through a review. I will put a link in the description to his overview of the battle changes if you're interested. In fact, I'll probably put several links in. Now, the way he's written it is that they've introduced new pike mechanics, and the fact that formation attack has been removed. So there's no more formation attack, and basically that's been removed to solve this problem of the way that the units moved and they'd get at an angle or even get reversed in the middle of a battle, which is very, very irritating. And they've also introduced a new way to use pikes. Now he actually goes into a description in his overview of how to use pikes. I'm not going to describe it now, but hopefully if we get, well, when we get into a battle, I will be able to kind of demonstrate that, or try and learn how to use it actually. Next point is hoplite phalanx is back. So basically hoplites will be a bit more effective than they used to be. And also they've done a vast amount of work on the battle AI behavior, which means that the AI is going to attack more intelligently, maneuver troops, that you're now going to get more skirmishes, that the AI will hold back reserves. So maybe some of the standard techniques that I've been using won't work, and it'd be interesting to see how we can fight the battles, and we may actually start losing battles. And the final point that comes up, I mean there are other pieces in his overview, but these are the main points, is the fact they've now introduced a more dynamic morale system, which means that even troops that are not engaged could get a morale hit. So if you've got a unit close to another unit that's been totally destroyed, the unit that's not actually engaged will also take a morale penalty. And the other thing also is they've rebalanced the flank and rear attack now, so that a flank attack is more powerful and a rear attack is not so powerful. The idea is to give a more balanced strategy and to give the AI a bit more strength, because the AI tends to attack more on the flank than go around the rear because of the way it's programmed. So now if the AI gets a good flank attack in on your troops, things are going to go wrong. I think that's about it for the DEI overview, so let's get into the campaign. And so we're going to play a grand campaign. Here we are guys, we're on the campaign map. Now before I talk about the faction that I'm going to play, which is Egypt, or the Ptolemies, I just want to show you some of the starting positions and how they've changed now. This is the Rome starting position, and you can see now that Rome doesn't own that. They don't own that bit there. They've got that bit there, but they don't own this. And I've actually checked, and this actually belongs to Epirus. So you actually start with Epirus on your tail there. And again with Carthage has a lot more kind of territory here, because it holds basically the same area as before, but because of the Augustus map, they've actually got a new region tucked in here. And if I can find where is it? Just have to have a quick flip through, guys. That's it. That's it. I was on it anyway. So, and if I kind of show you, Macedonia now only starts with one region, where if you've played the vanilla game, you know they start with two regions up here. And we're going to play with Egypt, or the Ptolemy. Apologies that I don't have the English spellings on here, although I don't think it affects that. There is a submod, it has been updated, but I haven't actually applied it. But what will happen is when this mod is released, I will try and upgrade it, and I will try and use the submod if it's released at the same time, just to kind of, so that I'm not having to tie my tongue up with lots and lots of very, very Latin names or Greek names. Anyway, so we're going to be playing as Egypt. Before I go through all the options, what I want to show you is, it's not very clear here, but you can see that Egypt now has a different starting position. If you play the vanilla game, it starts off with this area being in rebellion. Crete is a client state, and I don't think we actually own that. I think Tyrus belongs to the Succalids. So if I come here, you can see the Succalids now come across like that. So Egypt starts with a lot larger area than before. Right, what we're going to do now. So Egypt, we start with Alexander's legacy, minus 20% resistance to foreign occupation, successor conflicts, plus 10% morale for all units during battles against Hellenic factions. So you can see here the start year is 278 BC. Recommended difficulty is hard, and I'm going to play hard. I'm not going to go up to very hard, purely and simply because there's so much change in this game and I want to enjoy it. I don't want to be struggling to go, and also once I get on the campaign map, I'll explain to you another reason why I'm playing on hard rather than very hard. So say Ptolemaic Enlightenment plus 10% research rate, foreign dynasty plus 25% public order penalties due to presence of foreign culture. Now that's an interesting statement there. And again, I will explain it once I get on to the campaign map. Naval prowess plus 1 experience rank for Egyptian ship recruits. Victory conditions, we're going to control 85 settlements. We'll probably go for a military victory, although we'll probably have a look at the other ones as well. We've got to hold Egyptus, Italia, Macedonia, Syria, Parsa and Bactria. So what it's kind of saying is that we've got to own the eastern side of the map, but that's not going to constrain us. We're going to have 160 units in total and maintain 75 naval units. So I think that's about it, guys. And what I'm going to do now is click to start the campaign. It's the actual load screen is very low, so I'll split the video here and I'll see you on the campaign map.
Your former vassals, Cyrenaica, have deigned to declare their independence and must be brought to heel. Cyprus remains true, but is at risk from invasion, as are your eastern possessions. The Seleucid Empire is a particular threat, a sprawling successor kingdom desperate to maintain power by whatever means possible. An alliance with Nabatea may help to keep them in check. Maintain trade relations with the Greek states, and beware of Macedonian treachery, as they too may seek to gain control of Alexander's former empire. Egypt shall be victorious.
Okay guys, let's get down to it now. And what I want to talk about first is what makes Egypt different from the other factions in the game, in the fact that if I click here, you will see it says that the culture is Hellenistic, and it's got the little red reef there. But if I actually click on Alexandria, and yeah, you get these informative tabs for ancient cities that pop up when you click on the key cities. So if I click on here and expand the city, you get this neat little animation that comes up. If I grow a temple, you will see that it says +3 Egyptian culture. So which culture is the culture that you actually need to improve public order? Well, if you come down here, if you actually see here, it says traditions, local traditions are the hard-coded factors which are never changed. So you can see here that Egypt has 6 local traditions for the Egyptian culture, 6 for Hellenic, and 2 for the desert nomads. So that actually means that you will never be able to get 100% of any culture in this area here. It's always going to remain there. But it's also interesting now, where does the buildings come from and where does this come from there? Because this says 7 from characters and 6 from the buildings. Well, if I click on here and show you this building, the 6 comes from here. It says Macedonian aristocracy +6 Hellenic cultural influence. So that's where the +6 comes from. Now, if I move this army to here and then come back to here, you will see now that the local characters is now dropped to 2 instead of 7, sorry. And if I come here and look at it, you'll see characters is now 5. So the army itself is spreading culture, and that's because of a trait in the generals. And what you're actually getting is +2 from this guy here as well. So your armies, your cultures, your temples actually promote Egyptian values. And if I drop this army back, if he will come back over, and if we look at the recruitment options, you will see that a lot of your core troops are Egyptian, but at the same time it also says that they're Ptolemaic companions, and down here you get Egyptian archers. So all your troops are Egyptian, even though you're a Hellenic faction. Now, I'm not sure how that's going to work with relation to area of recruitment. So if I come up to here, and you come out here, and if I click on here, and you can see we get the fair Jerusalem's now a walled city. And again, if we click on here, Here the local traditions is 2 Egyptian, 2 Jewish, and you can see we get 5 from the characters from the army as well. Now, for any of you guys who are not familiar with this structure, is that it says, if I come here, it says Egyptian rising, Judaic falling. Now the reason for that is that at the moment the population is, well, the simplest way to do it is if that's 7, that's 9, round up to 10. What this means is that the Egyptian culture will continue to rise until it reaches 70%, or around 70%. I'm not going to do it precisely because I don't want to get into the maths. And the Jewish culture will drop until it's around 23-24%. So this change here has a direct relationship between this cultural influence. And to give you a far even better example is if I come up to side here, and if we click on here, if you see here it says Egyptian, Celtic, Hellenic. Now it's 40% Hellenic, but if you actually see here, we've got a massive minus 17 cultural differences. And the reason for that is the fact that if we come here, you will see that if I click, that there is absolutely no influence here for Egyptian, and there's no Egyptian culture. Where you can see that the moment with Hellenic you get two culture plus 4 for local traditions. Now I'm not sure where that culture actually comes from. So it says influence local traditions there. So now that 2 plus 2 culture probably comes from the fact that this province is Hellenic. I mean, I can't see anything else inside of here that actually causes that. There's nothing here that's given a boast. In fact, it's probably influence from the other cultures around that's actually doing it, because this is a shared province. Just to have a quick check. Sorry I'm going on a little bit, but this is quite a key element to the process. Obviously culture does relate to the overall structure, so that's the cultural, that's what makes playing Egypt interesting, because although technically Egypt is an easy faction, it means that when you get out to with the Sukhalids and up round here, it's not going to be easy to suppress the local populations, because these are going to be Hellenic. You're not going to have the Hellenic advantage, you're going to have to convert them to Egyptian. So that's point 1. The other thing I want to show you guys is if we come here, you get this whole very complicated thing. This is from the population mod. So you can see it's got all sorts of growth conditions and bits and pieces here. This is province development rate, and you can see the 4 types of population going down: eugenesis, catecholy, subject, and foreigners. Foreigners are effectively your immigrants, your mercenaries, and obviously the eugenesis are your aristocracy, and then you've got your middle class, and then you've got your lower class. Now what would happen is when you conquer, say we went out and took Iconian, the entire population converts to foreigners, which means you get quite horrendous public order issues, because if you come here and look at public order issues, it doesn't show up there that much, but your structure of your population will have an effect on your public order. And if you come over here and just wait, it will actually show you details of your population classes, how many people there are in them, and the effects it has. So you can see here it says this is a heartland with foreigners, and therefore we get plus 20%. Now if I kind of go out to up here and we look at the population here, you can see here we're getting minus 15% from all income, purely and simply because it's sparsely populated, and we've got a subsistence income of 20%. And if you kind of look here, our population breakdown, you can see all sorts of weird stats. To be honest, I don't know that much about it. It's something I'm going to have to learn. It's a completely new dynamic, from my point of view. I've done a little bit of reading about it, but there's a lot to learn on this area. So we kind of covered the population area and how it goes to effect. It's going to be interesting to see how that actually supports the process of expanding and going to war. Now, the other thing I want to show you is the area recruitment. If I come here and click here, this is your area recruitment symbol. I think in DEI 1.1 it had a slightly kind of pinkish type color to it. It was more rounded. These are the new symbols, and if I click on mercenaries, you will see this is the mercenary symbols, and there is also a symbol to show you auxiliaries if you're playing Rome. Now, the other thing you want to see here is the expense of these troops. These recruiting troops in DEI is not cheap. In fact, if I come over here and you want to see some eye-watering recruitment, look at that, 2,290 for Ptolemaic companions with an upkeep of 500. Now, when you bear in mind, I've only got an income at the moment of 297. I know the game you start with 25,000, but that is a very low income to support armies. So trying to get these armies built up and being an effective fighting force is quite tricky. You can't just build armies everywhere. Generals are expensive, so that's another consideration. What else can I talk about while I'm here? I'm just kind of really want to talk about the DEI, the main features of DEI. I've covered population, I've covered area of recruitment, and the issues around culture, just kind of running it through my head. The other thing also with the population is that, again, if I kind of come here and show you, every time you recruit troops it reduces your population. So you can say there that to recruit this Ptolemaic hoplite it's going to cost me 200 Karoloki population. Now again, this has an impact even on replenishment. Again, if you're out fighting, there's a possibility you may not be able to replenish. And I think the last thing I'm going to show you guys here is the fact that, again, I'm just going to come back to here, and I've got to remember where it is, that what you actually get now, actually if I click on the army, this isn't new to 1.2, it's been around since 1.1 I think, and you can see here now you've actually got to have supply chains. Armies need to be supplied when they're actually out and about campaigning now, and you can see if they're fully equipped they get bonuses, if not they get out somewhere they suffer quite severe attrition. And the way it works is this army is currently using local requisition, so it's creating +10 wealth from all commerce local region. It's got extra campaign movement range. It's obviously costing more to upkeep, but morale's higher. Now if I come to this army is probably going to be the same, which is a bit unfortunate. You can see here, so that army's on open market. Now maybe if I raise an army up here, just out of curiosity, so we'll just grab anyone,
Ready for battle.
and we come here and it says stance none. Oh well, obviously it is effects doesn't. It says here transfers them without particular advantage. Armies use this food, so we can't actually give him anything at the moment. Maybe if will that change the stance? Yeah, situation mustering. You can see again when you muster you actually consume food, so that's another issue that needs to be considered. Putting troops in the garrison, as again if I come here this is -4. If I put the troops in the garrison that comes to -5 or 6. Sorry, it's not very clear, it's -6. So you actually take a penalty, and if you kind of look at here, it actually tells you, it doesn't actually say as such that the effect there, but you do get benefits for being garrisoned, but at the same time it has an effect. And if I come out, what you actually get is, and if I go put it into, So at the moment that doesn't go there, but if I put him into stance patrol, you can see that that actually gives even more. That actually gives a public order bonus of +4 by having the troops in patrol, and I'll do the same over here just to demonstrate it. So you can see that that's -6. Put this guy into patrol and come back to here. That's -2. Now the important thing to remember about being in patrol is, and it's buried in here, it says here, replenishment, stance patrol. It says forces in this state cannot initiate battles. Forces in this state can be ambushed when attacked. Forces in this stance cannot muster. So it's great having these armies in patrol, but don't do it where, say, don't put an army in patrol there or close to a border, because if they can be attacked by an enemy, they will be ambushed. So back to supply routes. Sorry for that slight digression. Now, the whole supply route system is based on these provinces being able to support your armies, and the way to see that is to come here, and you can see here it says armies suffer attrition if region supplies become negative. And what you get is this whole load of stats. This is region supply stats. A region cap is how much, but it can store food. There are buildings. Now, I can't really show them in the supply chain, but if you go to here, there's a whole series of buildings below agriculture which actually improves your supply chain, and it says there, and it actually will give you the consumption of this army that's in here. And the important thing to remember is that the supply chains have to be built up across the map. So, and I think I've covered about everything I wanted to talk about. I've probably talked about a little bit too much, and I've probably fried your brains, guys, but that I apologise for. I think this is where I'm going to wind up the video. Obviously, some of the points I've touched on here will come into more detail as we play the campaign. And what I will do is reload the quick save and start the game from that point in part 1. There will be a short introduction. I think this is definitely where I'm going to leave it. I've rambled on far too long. So I hope you've enjoyed this introduction. Hope you found it interesting. Hope it's given you a bit of insight into what you're up against if you play DEI 1.2. And on that note, all I've got to say is whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.